Hello, so today we're actually going to do factoring and with a number, a coefficient that is not 1 for the x squared term. So for example, you're given, let me just put that, you have 5x squared minus 2x minus 7. Now what we learned is that you put a cross like this, and since there's a number in front of the x squared, which is 5, then I multiply these two, gives you negative 35, and the bottom is still stay the same as minus 2. So what two numbers multiply to get you negative 35, but when you add them, gets you a negative 2? Well, we said it in the class is that if it's a small difference, which is negative 2, that means those two numbers must be fairly close to each other, and that is 7 and 5. So after we find our combination, we can circle it just to remind ourselves, then I split the negative 2x as such. So I split the negative 2x as minus 7x plus 5x minus 7. So I split these two, but when I combine them, the like term, I still get negative 2. I just rewrite it differently. And it does not matter whether you write negative 7x first or 5x because the answer must be the same. And so after that, what I would do is use a different color. I put a bracket in front of the 2. So since this is a plus sign, it's the same thing as putting it like that because there's an adding anyways. And so I factor out what there is in the first bracket. So there's common, so that's why we factor it, and we can factor out an x. So we put it outside. It doesn't just drop and gone. It has to be factored outside the bracket. So we get back 5, and x squared divided by x is just x, minus 7x divided by x is just 7. The x is already taken out. I put be sure you have a plus sign here because it's not multiplying. I factor out the next one, but I know that can't be factored, so I just write everything as is. Now be sure that you know you're on the right track if both of your brackets have exactly the same thing. Okay, they have to be exactly the same thing. And so now, since they are the same, so if the happy face is equals to 5x minus 7, let's say just make it a little bit neater, I can rewrite this as x happy face plus happy face. And so now the problem becomes a lot simpler. So what can we factor out that it's in common? Well, the happy face. So I underline that because this is what they have in common. And so now I can factor out a happy face out. So I put it outside and I write the bracket. So x happy face divided by happy face is just x plus, always have the plus sign, happy face divided by happy face is just 1. Not 0, but 1. Well, we can't have our answer like that because that wouldn't give us full marks. So we have to plug back in what happy face is, which is 5x minus 7. And then we write the remaining back as plus x, times x plus 1. What that means is the original equation 5x squared minus 2x minus 7 can be factored into 5x minus 7 times x plus 1. Be sure you have the brackets. These brackets are very important. If you do not have them, it will completely change the question. So let's do a different one. Okay, what if I have something like this? 8x squared minus 10xy plus 3y squared. Now I have x squared and then I also have y squared. Well, I know that in the very end, what this means is x squared means there must be an x in front of the bracket all the time. Then I can use the same logic to say that, well, since there's y squared, that means I must have something y at the back of each bracket. So this is what we're aiming for. So this is what we're aiming for, so I'm just going to erase that because to get out of the way. And we did exactly the same thing. We put a cross. It's 8 times 3, which is 24. Bottom is negative 10. Be sure you have the negative sign, negative 10. Okay. And so what two numbers times to get 24? They add, gives you a negative 20. Well, you can see that these numbers, well, they're the same. They have to be both negative in order for you to have a negative answer when you add them and multiply them, get you positive. And so it's negative 6 and negative 4. I circle my combination and I split the middle term. So I write everything the same except the middle term. I split it into minus 6xy, minus 4xy plus 3y squared. And after that, I do exactly the same thing what we did before. We put a bracket. Now this time you can see here, I need to put a bracket right in front of the negative sign. I really need to include that negative sign in. So I have to add back a little plus here to signify that these two brackets are still adding each other. And so what do we get? We look at each of the bracket and see what we can factor out. So they have 2 in common. I can factor out a 2. And they both have x in common, so I can factor an x as well. So what do I get? 8 divided by 2 is 4. X squared divided by x is x. Minus 6 divided by 2 is 3. X divided by x is 1. We don't write anything. And y, well, there's nothing, so y has to stay in there. Plus, what do we have in common for negative 4xy and 3y squared? Well, they both have y in it, so let's just take out a y. So when we divide both terms by y, we get negative 4x plus 3y. Now we have to ask ourselves this question. Is it exactly the same thing? No, because this one is negative and this one is positive. And so that we know that it is not the same. So we have to do something about it. In fact, we had to factor out a negative 1 somewhere. So I get, if I factor out negative 1 in the first bracket, I will get, that means I divided each term by negative 1. So this will become minus 4x, and this will become a positive 3y, and I write everything the same. Now, as you can see, that they're exactly the same thing now, including the sign. So we can do exactly the same thing. We would change it to happy face, but due to kind of space, I don't have much space at the back, in the bottom here. So I can factor out negative 4x plus 3y out. When I factor out this whole entire thing out, whoops, what do I get left inside? I get negative 2x plus y. And so my answer to this question is minus 4x plus 3y times minus 2x plus y. Okay. Or if you want to factor a negative 1 out in each of the bracket, so it become negative 4x minus 3y times it by negative 1 plus 2x minus y. Let me just erase that plus sign, it's very annoying. So that also works too, but you can see that negative 1 times a negative 1, they actually cancel each other out. So we get 4x minus 3y times 2x minus y. Actually, both of the answers are also correct because I'm just playing around with the negative signs. So I hope you understand a little bit better how to factor when the number or the coefficient in front of the x squared term is not 1.